welcome back to Needed Conversations. I'm Victoria. This is my husband, Ryan Cole, and we're excited that you have joined us for today's episode as we're continuing our conversation about a dating dilemma.
That's right. We are talking all things dating, and last week was our first episode of Season 5, so if you missed that one, it really lays the foundation for this whole topic on dating. Most people don't realize that our marriage ministry started out kind of as a dating ministry. Okay. We were giving singles who we were mentoring a lot of wisdom, and we wrote a book, which is really a go-to handbook for how to date God's way. And it's called I Love You More, Most, and Forever. And if you haven't already picked up that book, or you need any other resources related to marriage or dating, go right now to moremostforever.com. And also, we are a nonprofit ministry. So everything that we're doing, all that we're producing is because of faithful supporters just like you. So whether you can give once a month or one time, whatever the Lord leads you to give, we would be so grateful. Again, just go to moremostforever.com and hit that donate button. If you hear a little bit of a background noise today, we are outside filming. We decided to come outside. So we've got the sound of a fountain over here, so you might hear a little bit of that. You obviously can see it if you're watching the video. And if you do like a little bit of visual, why don't you check out our YouTube channel or follow us on Facebook, and you can see this video. We stream this out as well.
Yeah, we're kind of adding a little bit of ASMR. Is it called ASMR?
ASMR, that's right.
For those of you who really like the sounds and it's maybe a little bit more soothing in conversation, I think this is really good.
Yes. Now, if you're married, just because we called the series The Dating Dilemma doesn't mean you should tune out. I think that one of the best things you could do is be able to garner this information and spread it to any of the single friends that you have. And as you and your spouse become healthier in your relationship, that you would turn around and mentor other couples that are coming up and be able to give them wisdom. We're here as a resource. So I want you to tune in. And hey, if you know any single friends, why don't you hit that share button, no matter where you're listening, and send them this episode. Because
Hey, and not only that, I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good.
But if you are married, you are going to obviously have kids, or a majority of you are probably going to have kids. So
absolutely,
living in the world and staying connected and figuring out what kids these days, or people in general, are dealing with in regards to relationships and how social media has changed that, and how to really help people to know how to build meaningful relationships. So this episode, just because we're talking about people that are dating, this is a good episode for just anybody, because I'm sure that you're connected to somebody that may need this information, or maybe it's something that you didn't know and you may have to kind of work your way, unravel some things in your marriage and kind of build from there. So we want you to stay tuned. Don't tune us out.
Yes. And the thing about it is, dating is becoming more and more challenging as the years go by. And really that's necessitated by technology, the advancement of living in a modern world. I say dating really in the Western world has become more complicated, because we don't date based on the same sort of requirements, right? Hundreds of years ago, it was built on a need for survival. And the role of a man and a woman was very clearly defined. And one of the things I love most about my book, which sometimes could throw people off when they first start reading it, is I have the whole first section. It's about you as an individual and helping you to become a purpose-filled individual, that your life is motivated by this God-given purpose. And then we talk about gender and those roles that men and women play in the world today. And they're a lot more ambiguous. And I think because we have failed to have those conversations about those gender roles is why we see this surge of identity based around these newfound gender titles. Yeah. And there's, at this point, over 100 different genders and sexual orientations that people espouse to. And really, it comes down to feeling uncomfortable with some of the traditional gender roles that we play.
Yeah.
And that's going to lend to our conversation a lot today as we talk about what is a high value man.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're not leaving the ladies out. In fact, this is probably a lot for the ladies to hear too, what you should be searching for in terms of a partner. But also next week, we're going to talk about what makes a high value woman. That term is very specific to the culture of this time. I don't necessarily like that term, but it's a term that's often used in a lot of viral videos with a lot of single people who are talking about the rules of dating today.
Yeah.
And even more so, some of these viral figureheads that are very crash or brash and very harsh with their approach and oftentimes very offensive, but yet they're racking up viral video after viral video. One of them is Andrew Tate. Another one is Kevin Samuels, who actually passed away recently. And these are primarily men, but actually we have a woman that we might show you today too, who are really putting these ideals forward that carry a lot of truth, but it's very hard to hear in a culture like we live in today. It's very upstream when it comes to ideals about men and women, what men are looking for and what women are looking for, and in particular, what high value men and women are looking for. And the fact of the matter is, we all, when we're dating, want a high quality individual.
Yeah.
No matter if you're a man or a woman. And if you're a believer, that bar should be set, that first standard should be that of godly character and someone who is a follower of Christ, a disciple of Jesus. And that's the qualifier. Before you let them any closer, that's a qualifier. Now, when the world talks about a high value man, it's not always that, but there are some interesting conversations that are being had that I think that we should listen to and weigh in on.
Yeah.
From a kingdom perspective, because I know many of you are hearing these videos, whether they're on TikTok or Reels on Instagram or YouTube, you're watching these and you're agreeing with a lot of them, especially the men, but you may not ever feel comfortable with saying it in public. And we're going to help you understand why, as a believer, you might agree with certain of the perspectives, but also why their opinion is tainted still with a worldly perspective, if
Almost
that makes
being
sense.
like superficial.
Yeah.
It's almost becomes like, I think when they state high value in the world, it's almost like there's a price tag on a person and like you're buying them. And we know, in the kingdom, it's definitely different because God values each one of us uniquely. And he pays a high price for us through his son, Jesus Christ. And so we look at it differently because we talk about partnership. It's not about just what can you bring to the table, because this is what I bring to the table. Because it's not about being 50-50 in a marriage. It's about being 100 and 100. And so for us, high value as, kingdom ambassadors means something different than what to the world or what they say success is in the world.
Okay, so one of the first videos I want to jump to is a video by a man by the name of Andrew Tate. And what's interesting about him, he's a former boxer who's sort of become this spokesperson for what it means to be masculine or manly and what a high value man wants from a woman. And he says a lot of these things that are very controversial, and he's been characterized as misogynistic. So I don't necessarily recommend that you go YouTube searching his name unless you want something very brash. There's some language involved, which obviously on this podcast we're going to censor out. But I think when you look at the numbers of views and men who are in agreement with him, you have to say to yourself, what is the thread of truth that he is digging at? And although his approach may be wrong, what from the Bible can we point to say, yes, this is right, and yes, this is wrong? Mm-hmm. And so we want to bring some correction, but we also want to validate a lot of men out there who say, absolutely, this is how I feel. And in our society today in particular, men have it very hard.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things which you'll hear him say is there's a discrepancy in terms of what the world determines is a high value woman versus what is expected of a high value man. The bar is a lot higher for a man in his perspective. And in a lot of ways, I may have to agree with him. But let's listen to this video. He's being interviewed by someone on Standout TV, and let's just hear what he has to say.
What kind of man are you?
What's the spectrum? I need you to quantify it for me. Who's at the bottom and who's at the top?
For me, I'd just say top, like a high value man.
What would you say constitutes a high value man?
A high value man is someone that is successful financially. I'd say it's someone that's got a lot of integrity and good morals, that is very well respected, is very sure of himself, but also is a very family orientated man. That's, for me, a high value man.
Okay, it's fine. I'm high value.
Yeah, so what's a high value man for you?
Pretty much basically what you said. I think a high value man is a capable man. I think capability can be judged in many different ways, and capability is something which varies depending on the situation. You need a man who is capable of doing lots of different things that he doesn't do very often. You need a man who's capable of being violent when the time appears. Of course, you need a man who's capable of making money. You need a man who can kill somebody and hold a baby in the same day. You need a man with a very broad spectrum of qualities and assets and capabilities. And this is actually what the most difficult thing about being a man is. Most people, when I say most people, let me change that. Most females don't respect how difficult it is to become a high value man. Because to become a high value man, you need to have so many different qualities and so many different capabilities. It's a very difficult thing to do. You need to be funny and smart and charismatic and interesting with stories and strong and rich with a nice car and a nice apartment. Whereas to be a high value female, you need to be hot. If you're nice, it's a bonus, but it's not even that necessary.
That's it.
I'm going to stop it right there because the conversation kind of starts out good, right? Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about what she characterized as a high value man versus what he sort of drove into with his opinion?
Yeah, I mean, it's something we've talked about before between you and me, how I didn't see it, how he has pointed out to be that men do have this higher standard. And I think for me personally, I think it's the reason why is because the roles have changed over time. And I think that females have now become entrepreneurs, business owners. I think nowadays there are more women that are graduated from college and universities than men. So I feel like that there's definitely a higher standard for a man, but it's because I think women have a higher expectation because they have to do, or they have done a lot of things. So I think that there's a difference in the roles where a woman used to be like in the house, in the kitchen, homemaker, but that's not everybody's thing anymore. So that's kind of my personal opinion. I understand what he's saying. I think it is definitely challenging, but it's because the bar has been raised as far as women getting out there and being entrepreneurs and doing all this kind of stuff. And so, I mean, I agree with both of them, but I think that's the reason why the bar has kind of been lifted.
I think the reason I understand his approach. He wants to rattle people. And so he will often take the most extreme opinion to do so and to get that attention. Whether it's purposeful or not, I'm not sure. But that's neither here nor there. I think that I agree with him about all of those characteristics that he started laying out. And it is tough to be a man. There is a high expectation on a man. But we have to put the conversation within context. Obviously, when he started saying, you know, men have all of these qualifications, and for a woman, she just needs to be good looking and, you know, maybe she's friendly as well. I'm like, really? That's all that characterizes a high value woman? Absolutely not. A woman needs to bring more to the table. But also, the conversation does eventually have to go to not just what does society value in a man or a woman, because I think now the metrics are pretty much the same. We're talking about success in your career, financial independence, you know, that you communicate well, that you dress well, you're attractive. That certainly plays a part in it. But really the question is, what does a high value man look for in a woman? And what does a high value woman look for? And are those things congruent? And does it make it harder for a woman to find a man once she's achieved success, if in fact what he is saying is true, which is, from his perspective, I've got money, I've got success in terms of my career.
Yeah.
I've got everything I need. What I need from a woman is not for her to be successful. Although it's okay that she is successful, it's not necessarily what I value as a top priority on my list.
Yeah.
And that does come off as misogynistic. But you can't tell someone what they should value. You can only ask them what they do value.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And I do see a discrepancy, especially among a lot of the single women that we talk to that are established in their careers. They're in their mid-30s, or even women in their 20s who are heavily pursuing their career. And by the time that they get there, they have an expectation that the man is not only good looking, above 6 foot tall, but also makes just as much money as them, if not more.
Yeah.
And they feel as if I can't be a woman who has a man who makes less than me and feel like that he's not a freeloader.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite a double standard. The fact of the matter is, you're pitching for a man who wants something different from you. He actually doesn't want a woman who is consumed by a career. He wants a woman who is able to have children and take care of a family and hold him down at home.
Yeah.
And whether or not you agree with that, that's what the vast majority of high value men are looking for. Now, when I say high value men, I'm not saying that if you aren't a millionaire, you aren't a high value man. But a man who is sure in himself and sure in his career may look for something in a woman that's a little bit different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
What would you say?
I mean, I don't know. It's definitely a lot to unpack.
It's
I
complicated.
It sounds complicated, yeah, because I think that everybody has different preferences, but I think we're talking more so in general terms of what majority of the men are, looking for in a woman. And that does not mean that you as a woman cannot be successful, but I think you have to be realistic probably in your approach to dating as to what you value in a person. Because to me, a person can have career and success and all that stuff, but does that career define them? You know what I'm saying? Because if push comes to shove and they ever lose the job or lose that business, are they going to be in the rut? Are they going to be depressed because you have completely your career has defined you? So I think that there has to be a balance of a person is not sure of himself because he is making good money and has a good career, but basically knowing his purpose and what he is called to in life, regardless whether his job changes, and he doesn't lose himself because of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that the problem is that we have to redefine what a high value man looks like for that woman who has achieved particular success or who is career driven. Even if you haven't achieved that success, but that's the path that you're on, you may be overlooked by a lot of men who want a woman to fulfill a particular gender role in his life.
Yeah.
So that means you have to redefine what a high value man looks like. And certain things have to come into play. Either you find someone very young and you build together and you balance seasons of intense workload for one or the other while also building a family, if that's what's valuable for you. But I'm here to tell you, building a family is the most important thing that you can do.
Yeah.
That's not just my opinion. That's biblically speaking. And within the dominion mandate is to be fruitful and multiply. And a lot of people pursue careers and worldly success because that's what they feel that they're supposed to do. And I think a lot of women undermine the value of a stay-at-home mom because they've been told that the most valuable women are the ones who, quote unquote, break the glass ceilings and achieve a certain amount of success within their profession.
Yeah, well, even statistically, I've listened to, I think, Peterson.
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. He was saying how, statistically, women that are in these high end jobs and work, 70 hours a week, kind of like a man does, eventually, once they hit their 30s, they're thinking to themselves, what am I doing with my life? You know what I'm saying? They find their fulfillment more in relationships. And I think that they start thinking about, like, what about my family? Like, you can be doing all this kind of stuff and working the money and making sure that you earn as much as a man does. But I think in the end, you ask yourself, what are you doing all this for? And not to say that men is not thinking about that too, but I think that's just how women are built. They're nurturers. That's kind of how God created us to be. And that's not to say that you can't have a career, or that you have to be a stay-at-home mom for years and years and years, because I know women that's just their drive. Like, they'll have kids, they'll do multiple things. They're a business owner on the side. They come home, they cook, they clean, they raise kids, they do homework.
I'm not saying that you can't do it all, but you can't do it all at the same time.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that.
You can't be in the delivery room and also in the courtroom at the same time.
Yeah.
You can do both at some point in your life. But if you are going to have a child, you are going to have to make certain sacrifices. It's the way God designed women to carry the children. That's obviously why surrogacy is so popular among celebrities who biologically can have children. Like, there's nothing wrong with their bodies, but it's that point of privilege that's allowing them to have a surrogate. And then nannies and all that sort of thing. But then oftentimes those people, their divorce rate is exponentially high. Like, it's so high. Even you say to yourself, but they have the money, they have the resources, they have the support. Really, when it comes down to it, are you investing in building that family, or are you outsourcing a family? Now, most people are not going to reach that level of privilege, and that's okay. I often talk about purpose and prosperity in a different way. Prosperity isn't about millions of dollars in your bank account. It's about having what you need to fulfill your purpose. Mm. And when it comes to dating, it's finding someone who is compatible with that purpose, that you become partners in that endeavor. And so if you are a woman who is of a certain age, who's reached a certain level of success, I think that you should be reasonable about whether or not that man makes just as much as you or more than you.
Yeah.
And I also, there was something I want to play. I sent Victoria this the other day. It was on Facebook. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Say a guy is a plumber, and he's making 60 grand. And the woman gets with him, but she wants a 6-figure man. But she says, he has potential. He could own his own plumbing business. But that joker don't want to own a business, all right? Everybody's not built for that. They're not wired for that. He is happy and content making $60,000, and I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. That's his thing. That's his thing. Exactly. If you now try to make him be more than that, he will start to resent you. Facts. And you will resent him if he's not moving his feet fast enough. So now y'all arguing about stuff because you're trying to make something to happen that never existed here. There was never real potential here. It's what you want to believe. And so potential sometimes is an imaginary perception.
Oh, say that one more time.
Potential sometimes is an imaginary perception.
That is Stephen Speaks. And he makes a very relevant point here. Like, do you need your husband? Like, if you are going to play that role and become partners, do you need him to also be all consumed with his career? If you are going to be consumed in your career, but you also want a family, then you might need a husband who's willing to, play a different kind of role in the relationship. But also, I think you need to say to yourself, does a high value man necessarily have to be a person making 6 figures?
Yeah.
Like, you could have a horrible man making 6 figures, but what if you found a man who has a stable career with a steady income, who is very wise and has emotional intelligence, and who is present for you and your children, and together you bring in money? Maybe your job pays way more than his, but he is stable and he holds you down. I think you have to determine what is high value for you in that season. And I'm going to be honest, every woman that I've known who is very successful in their career and financially, the ones who have gotten married have bent their standards when it comes to how much that man makes, you know? And if you get older, you have to date for different reasons, you know? Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that, like you said, you have to assess within yourself, what does it mean? What is important to you? Because in the end, really, like if you lose your job or you lose your resources, is that person going to be completely lost and their identity is going to be like wrapped into it? Or do you want somebody who knows what God's purpose is on his or her life? And with any shifts and turns in life, as we all have experienced, you know, we experience loss, we experience trauma, we experience other things in life that are hard and challenging. Are they going to be a constant or consistent? Or you're just looking for somebody that's successful in the worldly terms of bringing in money? Because more money does not mean more happiness. Honestly, it can actually mean more headaches, you know, because you have more responsibility, budgeting and all that. And then if you don't have a person that's sure of themselves, then there's always going to be a sense of jealousy as well. Like, oh, this person is making more money, or you're going to project onto your spouse that I am making more money. So you need to look for something that either is equal to what I'm doing or more to what I'm doing, because you're not contributing. Do you know what I'm saying? So you're always going to have that like bickering and back and forth if you both are not like, this is who I am. This is what I want to pursue. This is what high value man and woman means to me. And you have to come to the table and come to the terms with it, that maybe that doesn't mean that somebody's going to match what you come to the table with. But they're going to bring other aspects, like they're going to be a stable rock for you in your life where you can come home to and feel like it's not chaotic. You know, maybe they hold down the fort, and that's a contributing factor as well.
And that type of, and we are talking about generalities here. I know that there are always exceptions to the rule, and everybody thinks that they are an exception to the rule, and that's fine. You might wait a long, long time before finding someone who you still end up compromising over. And it's not about compromise. It's about bending where it matters. You know, when it comes to character, obviously that's a non-negotiable. When it comes to integrity, spirituality, do they follow Christ? Are they prayerful, etc.? Those are non-negotiable. But at the end of the day, whether or not he makes six figures is inconsequential. You should be asking a different question. Not how much does he make? Does he have good work ethic? Does he have a vision for his life? Is he able to cast a vision for his family? And the fact of the matter is, back to what the Andrew Tate clip was showing us, is that men who are very career focused and are what most women consider high value are all consumed by that career. And they are a one-track mind in terms of what they want. Actually, a really wealthy man of that stature, and I'm not even saying that's valuable from a biblical perspective, but that kind of man that you might be wanting for is going to spend a lot of time away from you, and he's looking for a woman primarily for her looks, her respect, and her submission. Her looks, her respect, and her submission. And if you're okay with that, then you're probably going to attract that kind of man, especially if you spend a lot of time in the gym and you spend a lot of time in the morning getting ready. Beauty is in a lot of ways, it's in the eye of the beholder. Mm-hmm. But there are certain beauty standards which speak to health that are pretty general across the board. And when you're that kind of man who has that kind of success or money, you have a particular woman in mind that you want. And it's not necessarily the woman who is a judge in her city or a woman who is an entrepreneur with millions of dollars. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, like I've watched several clips of like celebrities being in a relationship and then it's fallen apart or they got divorced. And majority of the ones that I have, read about, they said that their schedules were just too busy. They were just not even spending enough time together. Because
they're living on opposite sides of the world.
They're like, this one is touring, this one is doing movies, and they're somewhere like in Sydney or something like that for like months at a time. And so their schedules don't even collide. So just because you both have successful careers does not mean that you'll be able to build that relationship and build that family. And again, it goes back to what do you value most? And I think most people, when it comes to, push comes to shove and challenges come, most people want to have companionship. Most people want to have legacy that they can pass on, which is children, raising children. I mean, most celebrities that have, stood the test of time in Hollywood, majority of them will say, this is not my most important thing. My most important thing is going back to my family and raising my kids and having alone time and not watching movies and being on social media. It's really building a life with my family. That's what's important at the end of the day.
We actually watched an interview with Julia Roberts. She was promoting some movie that she has coming out. And her kids, I think, are pretty much, they're almost grown. Teens, they're older teenagers. Yeah. But she says, I'm first a homemaker and then I'm an actress.
Which is amazing to see because people look at her career and they're like, wow, she's, rolling high. But I think, again, it's what do you place value on? And majority
I think she
of those
could have made a lot
that.
more money in her career.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
I mean, we look at her level of success and say, how much more success could you have? But truth is, she probably said no to a lot of things that didn't accommodate her also being able to be a homemaker. And that's why she has a marriage that she's been married for 20 years. And she has kids who, from what I could tell, are not crazy.
Yeah.
Because they have a stable parent at home, or two stable parents for that matter. One of the other things I want to play is from this YouTuber, Just Pearly Things. Again, anything that we play, it's not necessarily that we recommend it. It's just that it is what's being played. This has 2.9 million views.
So if you ask 100% of women what they want in a guy, they list 20% of men, sometimes less. So if you want a guy that's over 6 foot, that's only 15% of guys. Mm-hmm. You want him to be good looking, cut it in half. You want him to make money, cut that in half.
So essentially she's saying that a top tier man, as you would put it, the more qualifiers you put on it, the smaller and smaller your pool gets. And if those qualifiers are superficial, like he's got to be 6 foot tall, then you've now eliminated 80% of men.
Yeah, she was talking about percentages that 15% of men are actually 6.2 feet tall. So it's okay, in the world. And then there's also the statistic that there's more females in the world than there's men.
So then it becomes smaller.
So it becomes even smaller. So you've chopped your chances because of this preference of, how this person looks or how tall they are.
Well, let's rein the conversation a little bit. We've talked a lot. You've heard some clips, and we're talking about what is a high-value man. Now, we know what a lot of women would consider a high-value man for superficial reasons, right? We've heard, obviously, that woman who was interviewing Andrew Tate, what her perspective was, what his rebuttal was. So we know what the world says. What does the Bible say? What does God say? This is the qualities of a high-value man in the kingdom, and the kind of man that you should be desiring, right? Number one, he loves God and he serves God. This doesn't just mean he attends church, but he's very solid as a follower or a disciple of Jesus Christ. How do you know that? Well, he can clearly articulate his biblical beliefs. He is intentional about serving in the body of Christ in some capacity, right? Doesn't mean he has to be in the church every time the doors are open, but it's certainly a man that you don't have to drag to church. It's certainly a man who wants to serve others. He is not afraid to share his faith, that it's not something that he backs down from in public conversations. He prays consistently, and he's not afraid, and this is important, he's not afraid to pray in front of and for others, especially you. If he's not praying for you in the dating process and praying for others, I wouldn't expect that to carry over into your marriage as well.
Yeah.
And finally, in this category, he displays godly character, which is the fruit of the Spirit. So love, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, meekness, self-control. You want all that in a husband.
And it doesn't mean that he has to be a minister. I think some
Right.
people get it mixed up thinking that my husband has to participate in all
He has to
church
be a pastor or in the fivefold ministry.
or a
No.
deacon or whatever. He could be very successful in whatever career he has, and he is ministering to the people that God has called him to, and that's in his career, and that's perfectly fine. That we're not all called to be ministers in the church. God has called us to be disciples, which means that we go out into the world and make disciples of all men. I mean, I know good quality men or high quality men out there that have their own businesses and that take young men under their wing and mentor and take them out.
Ministry
to eat.
comes in all different kinds of forms. As a believer, we're all called to the work of ministry.
Yeah, for sure.
But not all to the fivefold ministry.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, the misconception. Well, if he's doing all of that, he must be a pastor. No, this is the qualifications of a believer. But also, secondarily, beyond that, he's got strong work ethic. We talked about that a little bit ago. That means he has healthy patterns of behavior, including a consistent work history, whether he's an entrepreneur or has a career, a 9-to-5, and he has clearly defined goals that he has a track record of meeting. That's also important why you at least need one season with someone in the dating process to see how they are, whether or not the job they have is something they can hold on to long term, or the endeavor. They have perseverance through the ups and downs of the entrepreneurial risks that they're taking, and that they are managing their finances well. So they have to have strong work ethic.
Right.
Again, these are high-end distinguishable factors, and you may have a man that has seed forms of these potential. I think it also depends on his age. I think if you're looking at someone in your 20s and there's a standard, and then if you're dating in your late 30s and 40s, hey, he's got to bring something to the table. What has he done with the 40 years that he's had on this earth, right? What is his work ethic? You don't want to marry a project. Number 3, he has a vision for the future. So he loves God, serves God, good work ethic, and he has a vision for his future, which simply means, what does he want to do with his life? And how does he plan to get there? What does he want to do with his life? How does he plan to get there? Does he have a clearly defined career path, right? And again, it's not that he has to attain and achieve, millionaire status by the time he's 30, right? I think that's very superficial. I think happiness isn't necessarily connected to income. Sure, money does afford independence in a lot of ways, but I know some good, hard-working men who are electricians or plumbers. Hey, and let's not sleep on the qualities of those type of men and how much that they can earn. Because nowadays, there's not a lot of craftsmen.
Oh, and they're more in need than anybody else.
They're hard to find, and they can charge more. So I wouldn't sleep on a plumber. He might have to take a shower when he comes home. But yeah. But I mean, that's good work ethic right there, right? He's got a clear vision for his future. Number 4, he's financially secure. That means he has limited negative debt. That means if you have a mortgage, that's good debt. That's investment. But if he has credit card debt and it's nothing but eating out, that's a problem. And you're going to have to deal with that before getting married. So that means he has the ability to manage money well, to create and manage a budget. He's a disciplined spender, right? He spends when, he's okay to spend on pleasurable things, but also he knows when to rein it in. He is financially independent from his parents and or other social crutches. That's a strong one, right? The Bible says in the book of Genesis, but also reiterated in the book of Mark 10, from the beginning of the creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife. So it's the man who leaves the comfort of the dependence upon his parents and the comfort of a crutch of society Whereas a woman, I think it's more acceptable for her to come from her parents' home and be joined to her husband. He's the one providing and leading. Not that has to always be the case. Sure, women, you can be independent. I suggest it. I recommend it. But I think it's even more important that the man has a level of independence before he gets married.
Yeah, and that's one of the recommendations that we have for couples. I mean, at least to live out on your own, even if you're renting like a room, and being able to budget. Because sometimes I think when you're at your parents' house, not that you're freeloading, I'm sure your parents are okay with you living there, you know, as long as you're contributing. But I think that you get to experience some consistency with bills and budgeting and stuff like that. So I think that just helps all of that not to kind of jump on you once you get married, because that can add an added pressure to a marriage for sure. Yeah,
you have to have these financial conversations. There's a scripture, 1 Timothy 5:8. If anyone does not provide for his own, especially those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. That's very interesting. You put in the same category as an unbeliever. You love God, but you won't get up off your butt. And you love God, but you won't put in the effort, you know. And it's a very convicting scripture there. The last point in the category of being financially secure is that he's generous. He gives to others. He doesn't allow people to be freeloaders, but I think he's generous in giving to the church and giving to those in need. He has a generous heart. Number 5, he demonstrates leadership abilities. Ephesians 5:23 clearly lays out that the husband is the head of the household. That means if he's going to be the head, he has to go first. It's always the head that goes first. That means he's got to provide leadership to the family, direction. How does that come about? How do you identify leadership qualities in a man? Well, he can communicate. He can communicate where he wants to go and how he feels that he should get there. He can communicate his desires, and communication isn't just what's coming out of your mouth. He has a good ability to listen and listen to what you're feeling, listen to your advice, because you both have to weigh in on every major decisions in the relationship. He can problem solve. That's the sign of a good believer. He is emotionally regulated, especially under high pressure circumstances. That's the sign of a good leader. He is loyal and trustworthy. 1 Corinthians 7, chapter 7, verse 4 talks about how the husband and wife don't have authority over their own body, but they yield that authority to their spouse. And so he has to be trustworthy, not only with himself and with his life and to his spouse, but he has to trust her as well in the relationship. Anything you want to jump in on here?
No, I think those are all good.
Okay, number 6, he has a healthy self-esteem. Ephesians 5:28 says, "So husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself." And it's just an indication of the kind of care that he's going to have for you by how he cares for himself, right? Does he care about, his body, working out, making good food choices? So does he have a good self-esteem? Arrogance is not what we're looking for, but that he's confident. He walks with his shoulders back. And men, I hope you're listening. These are all of the characteristics that you should be honing in on and refining these skills as a young man. And fathers, if you're listening, if you want your son to be a formidable spouse, these are the characteristics you should be developing within him. Number 7, he displays courage. The number one need from a woman is security. And so it doesn't mean he has to be violent and angry, but I think one of the things Andrew Tate said that a lot of people overlook is that, he can stab someone and hold a baby in the same day, Not that he is overtly aggressive. That's not what we're saying, but that he can protect his family when need be. Yeah. And that he could make courageous, bold decisions. The final point that I will make in what makes a high value man is he keeps good company. So 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, "Do not be deceived. Evil company corrupts good habits. So you want to make sure, he keeps good company. Who are his friends? Who's around him?
Yeah.
It's going to speak to the kind of person that he actually is, because you're a product of the people that you surround yourself with. So, from a kingdom perspective, this is what makes a high value man. And as a believer, as a woman, these are the attributes you should look after. Now, sure, you might have your preferences, whether that be physically or you definitely, wouldn't it be nice to have a man who makes six figures, who would be able to take care of you? But then also, those same kind of women are also driven in their own careers. I think you have to measure what's important. You know what I mean?
I think lists are good, but one thing that I would suggest to women out there, I think for me, I had an expectation of what a man is. I had my preferences and stuff like that. Like one of my preferences was I was going to marry within my culture. And literally when I met Ryan, we were friends for a whole year. And when he first asked me to go out for coffee, and I was like, not even entertaining that thought, because I'm like, well, I don't even want to get into that because I'm going to marry somebody within my culture. And that whole year, I was, praying and all that stuff. And God really started to turn my heart and completely changed my mind to what I thought was set in stone. And so making sure that you're like open, listening. And to me, whenever we started dating, I had a list, but I feel like that God knows you more than you know yourself. And he knows what you will need even in the future. So the way God orchestrated this relationship was, I was just overwhelmed even in the dating phase of the little things and details that I was like, this is what I want in a man. And God just showed up exceedingly abundantly. And that's not to say that Ryan is a perfect man or I'm a perfect woman, but I think that God really starts to open up your eyes to see, wow, I know that this is not going to be like roses all the time, but it just makes sense. And it's like a piece of puzzle that comes together. So don't be discouraged. I know we have listed a lot of attributes and characteristics of a person, and that does not mean you have to bring that list to the date and like, oh, he doesn't have that. So,
don't put so much pressure on it.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
Keep these things in the back of your mind, that he loves and he serves God. He has a strong work ethic. He has a vision for the future. He's financially secure. Again, doesn't mean he's a millionaire, but he's financially secure. He's wise. He demonstrates leadership ability. He has healthy self-esteem, displays courage, and keeps good company. This, from a kingdom perspective, is what makes a high-value man. He may not check off 100% of those boxes. Every man have their challenges that they have to overcome. You just have to determine whether or not that's a challenge that you can help support him in overcoming.
And just as long as a person is yielded to God, God is definitely able to help that person to overcome certain challenges and weaknesses that he may have. But
yeah, so we hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you like and subscribe, but also hit that share button. Spread the word. Share this with one of your friends. This was the first time ever out of 100 and something, I don't know how many episodes we have, that we brought in like external clips.
Yeah.
And again, we don't affirm the positions of any of these YouTubers or social media influencers, but we recognize it's what's being disseminated as information and people are gravitating towards it. We wanted to provide some understanding and some reason, and this bring us back on focus with a kingdom perspective of what it means to be high value as a man and as a woman, especially in the dating process. So we hope this brought some clarity and understanding, and hope you'll join us next week as we continue the conversation talking about what makes a high value woman.
Yeah, it's going to be great.